There are moments in life that transform us forever. Moments when time seems to stop, and everything we thought we knew about life, about love, about what truly matters, changes completely. I'm Marina, a nurse for over 12 years, and I've lived many of those moments within hospital walls. But none of them marked me as much as that Thursday night, when I held a patient's hand as he passed away, and his final words completely changed how I see life. It was around 3 a.m. when I received the call from room 407. I was finishing some notes at the nurse's station, that quiet moment in the early hours when the hospital seems to breathe more slowly, when the monitor beeped. Mr. Anthony was going into multiple organ failure. I knew this moment would come. He'd been admitted for almost 2 weeks, fighting cancer that had already spread throughout his body. But knowing doesn't make it easier. When I entered the room, I found Mr. Anthony awake, with that serene look that only those who've made peace with the inevitable can have. He was 73 years old, completely white hair, and a gentle smile that remained on his face even amid the pain. His wife, Helen, was sitting beside the bed, holding his other hand, with silent tears streaming down her face. "Marina," he said with a weak voice, but surprisingly calm. "I'm glad it's you. I wanted to say goodbye." My heart tightened. 12 years in the profession, hundreds of patients, and still, it never gets easier to hear those words. I approached the bed, quickly checking the monitors. The numbers confirmed what I already knew. It was a matter of minutes, maybe an hour at most. "You're not going anywhere yet," I said, trying to keep the tone light, even knowing we both knew the truth. "We still have plenty of time together." He smiled, a tired smile but full of a wisdom that only those about to depart can have. "You don't need to lie to me, dear. I know, and it's okay. It really is." Helen sobbed louder, and Mr. Anthony squeezed her hand with a strength I didn't imagine he still had. "My love, we've already talked about this. It was 52 wonderful years. 52 years beside the most beautiful woman in the world. Don't cry for me. Celebrate what we had." I had to blink several times to hold back my own tears. There's something deeply moving about witnessing such deep love, especially in final moments. I adjusted his pillow, increased the pain medication slightly, and pulled a chair to the other side of the bed. "Marina," he said, turning his head slightly in my direction. "Do you have children?" "I do, Mr. Anthony. 2. An 8-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy." "How old were you when you became a nurse?" 23. "Fresh out of college, thinking I knew everything about life," I replied with a melancholic smile. He gave a weak laugh, which soon turned into a cough. I waited for him to recover, adjusting the oxygen mask. When he could speak again, his words came out slowly, each one carrying immense weight. "You know what the problem is with spending your whole life working in hospitals, seeing sick and dying people? We forget to live. We forget that out there exists a whole world waiting to be lived." His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. In recent months, I'd worked double shifts, weekends, holidays. How many times had I missed my children's school presentations? How many birthdays had I missed? How many nights had I come home to find my kids already asleep, without having had the chance to give them a goodnight kiss? "I see it in your eyes, Marina," he continued, his voice getting weaker. "You're dedicated, competent, an exceptional nurse. But answer me something honestly. When was the last time you really lived? When was the last time you stopped, took a deep breath, and simply existed in the present moment, without worrying about the next shift, the next patient, the next task?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the words didn't come out, because the truth was I didn't remember. It had been so long since I'd been living on autopilot, running from one place to another, always tired, always stressed, always thinking about what came next, that I'd completely forgotten what it was like to simply be present. "I spent 40 years of my life building a company," he said, looking at the ceiling with a distant gaze. 40 years working 12, 14 hours a day. Weekends, holidays, it didn't matter. I was always working. I thought I was building a legacy, a future for my family. And you know what I discovered when I finally retired? 5 years ago. I shook my head, completely absorbed in his words. That I had missed life. My children grew up, and I didn't see it. My wife aged beside me, and I barely noticed. I was so busy building a future that I forgot to live the present. And now, here, at the end, what I regret most isn't the deals I didn't close, isn't the opportunities I missed at work. What I regret are the Sundays I didn't spend with my family. It's the trips I postponed. It's the I love yous I didn't say because I was too busy. The tears I'd been trying to hold back finally streamed down my face. Every word from Mr. Anthony was like a mirror being placed in front of me, reflecting truths I'd been avoiding facing for so long. Helen was also crying silently, but there was a sad smile on her face, as if she knew this speech, as if they'd talked about this many times in recent years. These last 5 years, he continued, his breathing becoming more labored, were the best of my life. Not because I was rich, or because I'd achieved some great professional feat. They were the best, because I finally learned to live. I traveled with my Helen. I visited places I'd always wanted to see. I spent time with my grandchildren. I read the books I always wanted to read. I learned to cook. Imagine that. At 68, I discovered I love cooking. And you know why? Because I finally understood that life isn't in tomorrow. Life is in the now. He paused, struggling to breathe. I adjusted the oxygen mask again, checked the monitors. The numbers kept falling. He didn't have much time. And yet, he was using his last moments to share this wisdom with me, with a nurse he barely knew. "Marina," he said, his hand finding mine and squeezing with surprising strength. "Promise me something. Anything, Mr. Anthony. Promise me you won't wait until you're at the end, like I am now, to realize what truly matters. Promise me that tomorrow, when you leave this hospital, you'll hug your children a little tighter, that you'll look in their eyes and really see, that you'll call the people you love and tell them how important they are, that you'll stop postponing life." I held his hand with both hands, tears falling freely now. "I promise," I whispered. He smiled, that gentle and serene smile. "You know what the real irony of life is? We spend years and years chasing things. Money, success, recognition. And in the end, at the very end, the only thing that matters is the people we love and the moments we lived with them. Nothing else. Absolutely nothing else." Helen leaned in and kissed her husband's forehead. "I love you so much," she whispered. So much. "And I love you more," he replied, turning to her with a look of pure love. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Every day by your side was a gift. And you know something? If I could go back and do it all again, the only thing I'd change would be to work less so I could spend more time with you." I stood there, witnessing that intimate moment, that declaration of love in final moments, and something inside me broke and rebuilt at the same time. How many times, in recent months, had I fought with my husband because I was too tired, too stressed? How many times had I been impatient with my children because my head was at work, on responsibilities, on everything except what truly mattered? "Marina," Mr. Anthony turned his attention back to me. "You've chosen a beautiful profession. Caring for people, being present in their most vulnerable moments. That's sacred. But don't forget to take care of yourself too. Don't forget to live your own life. Because one day, you'll be here, where I am now, and you'll look back. And when that day comes, I want you to look back and see a life lived fully, not a life dedicated only to work." The monitors began beeping more intensely. The numbers were plummeting. I knew I needed to call the doctor, that I needed to start protocols. But something held me there. In that moment, witnessing something much greater than any medical procedure could reach. "It's time, isn't it?" he asked, his gaze meeting mine. I nodded, unable to speak. "Don't be afraid," he said, his voice now just a whisper. "I had a good life. I loved and was loved. In the end, that's what matters." And you know what touched me most? In that moment, as I held the hand of a man who was passing away, as I witnessed his final words, I realized he wasn't afraid. He was at peace. A peace that came from knowing that, despite mistakes, despite regrets, he had loved, he had lived, and that was enough. If you're on the other side of the screen listening to me, I want you to know you're not alone in life's rush. All of us somehow get lost in responsibilities, obligations, daily worries. But stories like Mr. Anthony's exist to remind us of what truly matters. And if this story is touching your heart now, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here we share real stories that make us stop, breathe, and remember the beauty of being alive. Also leave in the comments, when was the last time you stopped to really live the moment? I read them all, and I promise your words might be exactly what someone needs to read today. Mr. Anthony closed his eyes for a moment, and for a second my heart raced, thinking he'd already passed. But then he opened them again, with visible effort, and looked directly at me with an intensity that went right through me. "Do you know what the happiest moment of my life was?" he asked, his voice so low I had to lean in to hear. I shook my head, holding his hand firmly. It was on an ordinary Sunday, about 3 years ago. I was in our backyard, had just learned to barbecue. Imagine 70 years old and never grilled before. My children were there, my grandchildren running across the lawn, Helen laughing at some silly thing I'd said. And suddenly, I stopped. I stopped and looked around, and I realized that was happiness. It wasn't anything grand, nothing extraordinary. It was just a Sunday, a family gathered, the smell of meat on the grill, and the sound of laughter. But in that moment, I understood I'd spent 40 years of my life looking for happiness in the wrong place. Helen sobbed louder, her hand trembling as she caressed her husband's face. "That day was perfect," she whispered. "You were so happy, so present. I'll never forget. And you know what's saddest, Marina?" he continued, each word costing immense effort now. "That moment was always available to me. All those Sundays, all those years, I could have had that. But I was too busy, too important. I had meetings, contracts, deals to close. And meanwhile, life, real life, was happening without me. I thought about my children, about Laura, my 8-year-old daughter, who the other day asked me if I could make it to her dance recital at school. And I, without really thinking, had responded that probably not, that I had a shift, that it was important. And I saw the disappointment in her eyes, that disappointment she was already learning to hide, to accept as normal. "I see you doing the same thing," Mr. Anthony said, as if reading my thoughts. "I see it in your face, in how you talk about your children. You love them, that's obvious. But you're so busy being a good nurse, so dedicated to caring for others, that you're forgetting to be present in their lives." His words were like arrows straight to my heart, but necessary arrows, truths I needed to hear. "My children forgave me," he continued. "When I finally woke up, when I finally understood, they forgave me. We had 5 wonderful years together, but I'll never get back the years I lost. The first words, the first steps, the graduations, the relationships, the weddings. I was there physically at some of those moments, but mentally I was at the company, solving problems, planning the next big deal. The monitors were beeping louder now. His breathing was becoming irregular. I knew these were the final minutes. I needed to call the doctor, document, follow protocols, but I couldn't move. I was completely trapped in that moment, absorbing every word as if my life depended on it. "Marina," he said, his voice now just a thread. "When you leave here today, I want you to go straight home. It doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you have 1,000 things to do. You go home, hug your children, and stay with them. Really stay. No phone, no distractions. Not thinking about the next shift. Just stay. Because one day, a day that will come faster than you imagine, they'll grow up, and you'll look back and wonder where the time went. I promise," I said again, tears falling on the sheets. "I promise I'll change, that I'll be more present, that I won't let work consume my whole life." He smiled, that serene and peaceful smile. "I'm not telling you to quit your job. You're good at what you do, and the world needs people like you. I'm just telling you to remember that you're also a mother, a wife, a friend, a woman, that you have a life beyond these corridors, and that life deserves to be lived fully." Helen leaned in and kissed her husband on the lips, a long kiss, full of decades of love and companionship. "Thank you," she whispered against his lips. "Thank you for coming back to me these last years. Thank you for finally understanding. The pleasure was all mine, my love," he replied, his hand caressing her face for the last time. "Every second by your side was a privilege." And then he looked at me one more time, using his last strength to squeeze my hand. "Remember, Marina, life isn't in tomorrow. Life is in the now, in the hug you give your children when you get home, in the good morning kiss to your husband, in the conversation at the dinner table, in the smile you give a stranger on the street. It's in the small moments that life happens. Don't let those moments go unnoticed." His breathing was getting weaker. The monitors were screaming their alarms, but he kept his eyes on me, making sure I'd understood, that his message had been received. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for these words, for making me wake up." He nodded slightly, a final smile forming on his lips. Then he turned to Helen, looked deeply into her eyes, and whispered, "See you soon, my love. This time, it's just a see you soon." And with that, his hand loosened in mine, his breathing stopped, and Mr. Anthony passed away, in peace, surrounded by love, after using his last moments to try to change the life of someone he barely knew. The silence that followed was deafening, the monitors beeping, marking a flat line, Helen crying softly, holding her husband's hand that no longer squeezed back, and me, standing there, with a broken but also strangely whole heart, transformed by words I'll carry for the rest of my life. I followed the protocols, called the doctor, documented the time of death, 3:47 a.m. on a Thursday I'll never forget. I helped Helen with the necessary procedures, hugging her when she collapsed in my arms, murmuring between sobs that 52 years still weren't enough, that she wanted more time, always more time. "But he was at peace," she said after a while, wiping tears with a crumpled tissue. "In recent years, he really was at peace, happy in a way I'd never seen before. And you know what he told me? Last week, when we received the diagnosis that there was nothing more to be done, I shook my head, still holding her hands. He said he had no regrets, that after he woke up to life, he lived every day as if it were his last, and that if he had to leave now, he'd leave happy, because he had loved, he had laughed, he had lived, for real." Her words echoed Mr. Anthony's, and I realized that was the lesson. It wasn't about not working. It wasn't about abandoning responsibilities. It was about balance. It was about remembering that we're human beings, not productivity machines, that we have hearts that need to be filled with love, laughter, simple but meaningful moments. When I finally left that room, it was almost 5 in the morning. My shift would end at 7, but for the first time in years, I decided to leave on time. I wasn't going to work overtime. I wasn't going to check on just one more patient. I was going home. I arrived home at 8 in the morning. Normally, at this time, the kids would already be at school, and my husband would have left for work. But that day, I called him on the way and asked him to wait, not to take the kids yet, that I had something important to do. When I opened the door, Laura and Michael ran to me, surprised to see me at that hour. "Mom!" Laura shouted, jumping into my arms. "You came back early." "I did, sweetheart," I said, hugging them both with a strength I hadn't hugged with in a long time. "And today Mom's going to stay with you. Let's skip school. What do you say?" Their eyes widened, incredulous. "Really?" Michael asked, jumping with joy. Really. Today's a day to do whatever you want. Park? Movies? Just stay home playing? You choose." My husband, Peter, looked at me with an expression of surprise and concern. "Is everything okay?" he asked quietly while the kids ran to their room to choose clothes. I hugged him tight, resting my head on his chest. "Now it is," I said. "I was lost, Peter, but I think I've finally found my way back." We spent that day together. We went to the park, ate popcorn at the movies, laughed, played, and simply existed together. No phone, no worries about the next shift, not thinking about bills or responsibilities. Just the 4 of us, living the moment. And you know what I realized? Happiness isn't complicated. It's not something you need to conquer or deserve. It's simply being present. It's looking into the eyes of the people you love and really seeing. It's holding your children's hands and feeling their warmth. It's laughing at silly things and creating memories that will last forever. That night, when I put the kids to bed, Laura looked at me with those big eyes and said, "Mom, today was the best day of my life. Can I have more days like this?" And my heart broke and healed at the same time. Because how many best days could she have had if I'd woken up earlier? How many moments had I missed? But also, how many moments did we still have ahead? After that day, my life changed. I didn't quit my job. I'm still a nurse. I still love what I do. But I learned to set boundaries. I learned that I'm not indispensable at the hospital, but I'm irreplaceable to my children. I learned that being tired isn't an excuse for not being present. And I learned that life happens now. Not when things calm down. Not when we have more time. Not when we retire. Mr. Anthony used his final moments to give me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. He gave me back my life. And now, Every time I feel like I'm falling into old patterns, every time I pick up my phone instead of talking to my kids, every time I think about working one more overtime hour, I remember those words. Life isn't in tomorrow. Life is in the now. If this story touched your heart in any way, know that you're not alone. We all carry our own battles, our fears, our doubts. But that's exactly why stories like this need to be told and heard. If you know someone who needs to hear this message of hope, share this video. Sometimes, one story can be the light someone needs to keep going. And if you have your own story to tell, leave it here in the comments. This space is ours. It's safe, and every word matters. I read every comment, and I know many of you also read and find strength in each other's experiences. See you in the next video with another story that will move your heart. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of those you love, and remember, life is always worth it. A warm hug, and until next time.